The house felt impossibly large without him. Each room echoed with memories I no longer wanted to face. The silence, once comforting, now gnawed at my soul, louder than any argument we had ever had. The divorce had left me hollow, wandering through the wreckage of a life we had built and broken together. I stayed in bed most days, curtains drawn, pretending the world outside didn't exist. Friends called, left messages, tried to visit. I ignored them all. Healing, they said. Give it time, they said. But time didn't heal. It only stretched the pain thinner, like a bruise that refused to fade. That morning, I barely noticed when the door creaked open. It wasn't until I felt a weight on the bed that I stirred. There he was, Max, my golden retriever, looking up at me with those endless, understanding eyes. He had always been ours, a family dog, we said, but deep down, he had always been mine. He nudged his wet nose against my hand, a silent question. Are you okay? I burst into tears. It was like a dam breaking, all the sorrow and betrayal flooding out in sobs that racked my body. Max didn't flinch. He simply curled up beside me, pressing his warm body against mine, anchoring me in the storm of my grief. I didn't deserve his loyalty. I had failed at everything, at marriage, at happiness, at hope. And yet here he was, steadfast and sure, loving me without demands or expectations. That day, for the first time in weeks, I got out of bed. Not for myself, but for him. I filled his water bowl. I opened the door to the backyard. I watched as he bounded into the sunlight with an enthusiasm I couldn't even imagine feeling. Maybe healing didn't come all at once. Maybe it came in moments, small, stubborn, and silent. And maybe, just maybe, it started with a dog who refused to leave my side when the whole world seemed to have already moved on. Before you continue, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel. I've got another compelling story coming tomorrow that you definitely don't want to miss. This one's just the beginning. Stay tuned for more twists and turns, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're the first to know when the next chapter is up. Thanks for being part of this journey. In the beginning, it was all mechanical. Feed Max, walk Max. Let Max out, bring Max in, repeat. I moved through the motions without thinking, like a ghost haunting my own home. But somehow, the routines kept me tethered to life, preventing me from slipping deeper into the numbness that waited like a shadow around every corner. Max was patient with me. He never demanded walks when I couldn't find the energy. Instead, he would sit quietly by the door, his leash in his mouth, waiting for me to decide that maybe, just maybe today, was a day worth trying. One afternoon, after days of rain and gray skies, the sun broke through. Max sat by the window, tail thumping softly against the floor. I watched him for a long moment, then grabbed the leash without even thinking. Outside, the world smelled fresh and new, like the earth itself had been scrubbed clean. I inhaled deeply, really inhaled, for the first time in what felt like forever. Max trotted ahead of me, ears perked, nose twitching at every flower and tree. His excitement was contagious. I found myself smiling, a small, uncertain smile, but a smile nonetheless. We wandered farther than I intended, down streets I hadn't walked in years, past the old coffee shop where he and I used to spend lazy Saturday mornings, past the bookstore I had always meant to visit but never had time for. Without realizing it, I was building new memories, new places untangled from the life I had lost. When Max paused to sniff a bush particularly thoroughly, I leaned against a fence and tilted my face up to the sun. It was warm on my skin, unfamiliar but not unwelcome. I realized I wasn't crying. I wasn't thinking about him. I wasn't thinking about us. I was simply there, in that moment, with my dog and the sunlight and the wide open possibilities of a life not yet lived. Max came bounding back, tongue lolling, eyes bright. I ruffled his fur and laughed, really laughed, and for the first time, it didn't sound hollow. Maybe healing didn't look like I thought it would. Maybe it looked like breathing, like walking, like learning to live again, one small step at a time. Healing, it turned out, wasn't a straight line. Some days I woke up with energy, hope even. Other days, the smallest reminder, a song on the radio, a pair of shoes left by the door, could unravel me completely. It was a rainy Tuesday when I stumbled upon a box in the back of the closet. Max was beside me, his head cocked as he watched me hesitate. I knew exactly what was inside: wedding photos, anniversary cards, pieces of a life that no longer existed. For a moment, I just sat there, my hands resting on the cardboard lid. Part of me wanted to shove the box back into the dark and forget it ever existed. But Max nudged my arm gently with his nose, as if reminding me that running away hadn't worked before, and it wouldn't work now. With trembling fingers, I opened it. Photographs spilled out, smiling faces frozen in time, promises that once felt unbreakable. I picked up a picture of us on our honeymoon, sunburned and laughing, and the ache in my chest was almost unbearable. But then Max rested his head on my lap, and somehow I didn't feel quite so alone. I sorted through the memories, not rushing, letting each one hurt if it needed to. There were tears, of course, but there was also a strange sort of gratitude. Gratitude that I had known love once, even if it hadn't lasted. When I finally closed the box, I didn't hide it away again. Instead, I slid it under my bed, still part of my story, but not dictating it anymore. Later that night, curled up on the couch with Max snoring softly at my side, I realized something important. The past would always be a part of me, but it didn't have to define me. Max stirred in his sleep, his paws twitching as if chasing dreams. I smiled and whispered into the quiet, "We're gonna be okay, aren't we?" Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. And for the first time, I truly believed it. I'll take a short pause. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and if you've ever gone through something similar. I'd love to read your stories. And if you'd like to hear more, don't forget to subscribe. I'm continuing now. The days began to find a new rhythm. There were still moments of sadness, sure, but they didn't swallow me whole anymore. Instead, they passed through me like waves, sometimes fierce, sometimes gentle, but always moving forward. Max became more than just my dog. He was my alarm clock, my walking partner, my dinner date. Each morning, he'd greet me with a wagging tail and eyes full of unconditional love. No questions asked, no explanations needed. We took long walks through the park, even when the skies threatened rain. I found comfort in the way Max would charge ahead, fearless, reminding me that sometimes you had to keep moving even if you couldn't see the path clearly. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low behind the trees, I noticed something surprising. I was smiling, not the strained, polite smile I had worn for months, but a real, effortless smile. It caught me off guard. Max, sensing my lightness, jumped up playfully, circling me until I laughed, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in far too long. That night, as I brushed my hair in front of the mirror, I studied my reflection. There were shadows under my eyes that hadn't been there before, sure, lines carved by grief and sleepless nights. But there was something else too: strength, a quiet resilience I hadn't known I possessed. I wasn't the same woman who had crumbled on the kitchen floor months ago. I wasn't defined by the man who had walked away or by the love that had faded. I was something new now, something stronger. As I turned off the light and slid into bed, Max hopped up beside me, curling into the crook of my arm. I whispered into the darkness, "Thank you for not giving up on me." He let out a contented sigh, as if to say, "I never would." And neither, I realized, would I. Months later, life looked completely different. It wasn't that everything had magically fallen into place. Far from it. Bills still piled up. Some nights, loneliness crept in quietly, uninvited. But the overwhelming sadness that once defined me had loosened its grip. One morning, as Max and I sat by the window sipping coffee, well, me, he gnawed happily on a chew toy, I realized something profound. We had built a home, not the house I once imagined with a white picket fence and a picture-perfect family, but a home built from loyalty, healing, and simple, ordinary moments stitched together with love. I no longer woke up mourning the life I lost. Instead, I woke up excited for walks, small adventures, the comfort of routine. Max and I started attending weekend hiking groups. At first, I was hesitant, shrinking into the background. But Max, ever the social butterfly, forced me into conversations I otherwise would have avoided. And slowly, quietly, friendships grew. I met people who had walked through their own fires, divorces, losses, heartbreaks, and survived. Their stories didn't scare me anymore. They connected us. One chilly autumn evening, while hiking up a wooded trail, Max darted ahead and stopped in front of a man tying his shoe. The man looked up and smiled, an easy, kind smile, and knelt to pet Max. We chatted briefly, laughter coming easily between us. It wasn't a fairy tale moment. It wasn't love at first sight. It was something quieter, gentler, a beginning stitched not from desperation, but from the understanding of two people who knew what it meant to lose and heal. I realized then that life wasn't about replacing what I had lost. It was about creating something entirely new. When Max and I returned home that evening, I stood in the doorway, watching him trot happily to his favorite spot by the couch. Home. It wasn't about walls or rooms or titles. It was about belonging, about hope rising from the ashes. And in that quiet, golden moment, I knew I was finally home.